Evening, Cherries fans, and welcome to this latest show here on Up the Cherries in all departments. This is a special interview show. Before I welcome on my special guest, here's a little bit about our sponsors, Dental on the Banks. Find out what they can do for you, visit dentalonthebanks.co.uk. Now, my special guest today played for both Portsmouth and Manchester City, amongst other clubs as well. He was also a player and a manager of AFC Bournemouth. It is a pleasure to welcome onto the show Lee Bradbury. Evening, Lee. How are you?
Good evening. Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you. Yourselves?
Yeah, very well. Thank you. Very well. And thank you for joining us on this special show here today. So let's start off from the very, very beginning. What are your earliest memories of football, and who was your first footballing hero when you was growing up?
My first memories of football, like most kids, really, I suppose, playing out in the street and, just kicking the ball around, and my dad sort of getting me to rolling the ball to me and trying to get me to kick it back. But but out in the streets, really, I suppose, learning to play and out in the school field and PE lessons, all those things, really. I had a good upbringing on the Isle of Wight, and schools were good, and we had some half decent teams. Later on, when we got into senior school, we got into the national finals and played at Goodison Park. We lost that final, but we had a good team. So that would be for me the out in the streets, really. I was lucky to live in a street with lots of friends and family, and there would be quite a few of us out there every day after school, up against the wall, and annoyingly hitting neighbours' cars, etc. Getting told off, smashing the odd window, but it's part of the learning curve.
So you grew up on the Isle of Wight. What was it like growing up there?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It's it's great in the summer over there. Lots to do. Very similar to Bournemouth, I'd imagine. It's a place to live. Lots to do in the summer and quite quiet in the winter. But it's quite a good contrast. There's a good upbringing, nice people, and no real crime, etc. over there. So it's been a good grounding for me, to be honest. And but when I got to 16, it was like leaving school. It was difficult because there's not a lot of job opportunities over there, and there's no professional football team. So I had to go for a different route, but I'm sure we'll come on to that later. But a good upbringing, good friends, still in touch with all of them now, and a lot of family on the Isle of Wight as well.
Excellent stuff. You did mention your alternative career there as well, and you was in the military. What attracted you to a role within the armed forces?
I think it was just like I wanted to do something with my life. I didn't want to just stay on the island, and a lot of people in tourism or boat building or different industries there that didn't really attract me. I wanted to see a bit of the world. I wanted to do something different. I wanted to challenge myself, and I think obviously the military gives you that. And we sat in English one day, and a friend of mine said he was going to the recruitment offices up in Newport. Did I want to come? So I went with him just for a bit of company and that, and to go. Ended up speaking to the sergeant who was working in there, and then ended up joining the army. So it's quite, I think they sell it to you. If you're good at sport, then they look after you well, which they do. So I ended up joining, and we went all over Europe and the world, really playing football for the combined services and the army, etc. But excuse me, had some really good times in the army. Certainly wouldn't change it.
So your first teams you played for, excuse me if I get the names wrong, is it Howstead Town under 18?
No, I don't know where that's come from. Never played for Howstead Town.
No?
But there's quite that's not just yourself that have said that to me in the past. Quite a few people have. I don't even know what it is. I think it might be Colchester, is it, way or something?
Yeah, that's what I thought. It was a bit.
Yeah, no, I played for Gurnard in a youth setup. My dad was in the coaching setup there in a different age group. Gurnard Football Club, and then went on to obviously play for Cowes and East Cowes Vics and stuff a little bit later on in the Wessex League. I actually played with my dad in the for Plessies when I was probably 14, 15. He was a good player, my dad, but he liked a drink too much, and but that was a lot back in those days. That's what happened. You could do both, but as it's got more involved, more and more the game, you can't really do that anymore. So, but yeah, it was nice to play games with him. It's good memories for me, and and then I've played with my son since, only in like charity games, etc. But it's always nice to do that. You still think you can get around the pitch like they can, but you can't. And all of a sudden, I've been morphed into my dad. So, yeah, it was nice, and nice memories to keep.
Excellent stuff. Well, whilst you was based in Northern Ireland with your regiment, you actually began playing for a team called 5 Mile Town United. Now, how did that come about? And did you enjoy playing there? And how did it affect your development?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, it came around through somebody, a PTI, a physical training instructor there, that knew somebody from the club, and they ended up asking me if I wanted to play. I was a little bit concerned about going out and playing and being at risk at times, because we're talking 93. But no, it was fine. Absolutely great. Good club, and it developed me. Everyone wanted to give me a kick, so I needed to make sure I was switched on and sharp and bright in and out of possession. And it's a good learning curve, because my first real sort of taste of men's football, if you like.
So you moved into the professional game with Portsmouth. How did they approach the army for your services?
We went on a pre-season tour in Portsmouth and the Isle of Wight, and at the time I was flying. I was scoring a lot of goals. I was sort of 20 years old, fit as you like. And as we were looking around Fratton Park, my coach, we bumped into Terry Fennick, who was the manager at the time. And my coach ended up chatting to him, and he was chatting to us, and he recommended me for a trial. And next thing I know, a couple of weeks later, I'm over at Portsmouth on trial, and the rest is history. But no, it's I turned up to trial, and it was strange, because I didn't know what professional footballers done. I didn't know how they trained. I didn't know what pre-season was. It was pre-season. I found out a week after I'd been there that this is I can hear the senior players, Martin Allen McLaughlin, bless him. Quite a few of the older boys saying that can't wait till pre-season's over. And so I'm saying, what's pre-season? They said, well, you're doing it now. It's a 6-week block of hard work, which is like not normally like this. And normally I said, well, what happens normally? And they said, well, you normally go home by 12:30. And I was like, God, this is all right. And I was flying. They're telling me to slow down, this, that, and the other. But I was like, I'm self-employed here, trying to get myself a contract. And I carried on doing what I was doing, and ended up getting the contract. But good times. And I was young and hungry and fit and enthusiastic about the game. You know, either walking the streets of Northern Ireland for half the money or playing football for double. It's like, left skid marks.
You did have a loan move to Exeter fairly early. How did that materialise, and what can you tell us about your short time there?
I mean, training obviously day in, day out with the pros. I was improving, but I didn't understand. I'd never been coached really. I didn't really understand the game. I needed to learn that. And Terry Fenwick said to me, "Would you want to go on loan Exeter and play games? You know, help your development?" And I was like, "Yeah, whatever it takes for me to improve and try and come back and get in the team here." And he said, "Yeah, if you do that, I'll give you a chance when you come back." I went for 3 months. Really enjoyed my time. Good people, good club, and learned a hell of a lot. Scored, I think, 5 or 6 goals in 10 or 11 games, and came back a different player, knowing the game a bit more, and just having that bit more experience under my belt of playing in front of crowds, etc. I'd never done that really before. Probably only played in front of 1,000 people before. So then all of a sudden I'm playing in front of 7,000 or 8,000 at St James's Park, to then come back to Fratton and play in front of 20,000. So I jumped up pretty quick, and I think that was just due to my attitude and my hard work and desire to not lose. And that's something that I think the Army instilled in me early. But yeah, great times down at Exeter, and definitely one of the biggest stepping stones that helped me through my career.
So 1996-97 season, you had an impressive season for Pompey. Another club started to take interest in you. What do you remember from that season?
Yeah, I mean, sort of, it's one of them seasons where, everything went right for me. I just felt that I was going to go out and score. I think I went for a 6 or 7 game spell where I scored every game, and I was going out thinking I was going to score today, and I was planning celebrations. And it's a great place to be in as a centre forward and as a footballer, knowing that you're confident in your ability to be able to step out and do your job to the best of your ability. And and then from then there was in pre-season tour in Scotland actually, and I had a phone call from my agent and said that the club agreed a fee, and we've got a couple of clubs interested in yourselves, Premier League clubs and Championship clubs. And first one he said was Man City. So he said, we'll go there and chat to them first, and then we can go and speak to the other clubs. But it blew me away, Man City, when we went there. Went up to the club. Obviously, the old ground, the Kipak stand, etc. at Main Road was legendary. And it just attracted me straight away. And it was still in the same league in the Championship as what I was playing in with Portsmouth. But I just felt that it suited me at the time. Ended up going there, not even talking to the other clubs. So great experience. I wouldn't change that, but a difficult one at times.
And you were the first footballer from the Isle of Wight to be transferred for over $1 million. What sort of pressure did that put on you? And also, you did play against Portsmouth quite early on. Can you remember telling us? Can you remember a little bit from that day?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think it was like 3 weeks later, we had Portsmouth at home in the first game, and some of my best mates, like Sammy Igo, Dave Waterman, and that, they were in the team at the time. I'd be playing against them 3 weeks later, and it was strange. We were talking to each other, and when they came up the night before, I went to the hotel to see them. Liam Gallagher came on the pitch that day and goaded the Pompey fans. It was probably, 30 degrees, roasting hot, electric atmosphere. Liam Gallagher comes onto the pitch and sort of gives it that to the Pompey fans. and the stewards were like, oh, God. But yeah, it just added to the game and the occasion, and the sort of the club that I joined was a big one, and the expectations were high. We ended up drawing the game 2-2, I think. And it was tough for me to play against them before the game. It was like weird, and it was a bit different. But as soon as you kick off, it's like you go in game mode. Even in training, I'd had fights with Dave Waterman, etc. before in training, just because we're competitive and we want to win, and even 5-a-sides, etc. And it was no different when it came to the game. You do your best for the team, and then afterwards you shake hands with your mates again. But during the game, it's there's no friends, and you got to do what you got to do to try and win.
You had to wait till I think it was mid-September before you got your first goal for City. Was that kind of a relief, sort of like a thank God moment after such a big transfer fee?
Yeah, it was, because I think it's going for £3 million, and in those days, most expensive player that they'd ever bought. The pressure was on, and sort of a bit like Haaland, he's gone and scored 2 or 3 a game. He's hit the ground running. He's had a fantastic start, and really impressed with that signing. But I'm sure we'll come on to those sort of things later. But yeah, it was 5 games, didn't score, 6 games, hit the post, or something. In my 7th game, I scored, and it was a big relief. I remember the ball dropping. I think it was against Norwich, dropping on the edge of the box, and I hit it on the half volley, and it just rose into the side netting halfway up the goal. And yeah, great reaction from the crowd and myself. And I've actually got somebody sent me a painting of that, my first goal, of me celebrating, a big sort of 4-foot painting, which is a nice memory for me, because it was a big relief. I'd be lying if I said it didn't affect me early. I was a young lad, been paid good money and spent a lot of money on. But I tried to put that to the back of my mind, and just tried to say, just keep doing what's got you here. Don't get involved in all the stuff around it. Just concentrate on doing what's got you moved, which is hard work, desire, and trying to be brave and score goals. So, but at the start, definitely felt the pressure after a few games.
Of course, Frank Clark was sacked, and then Joe Royle come in, and relegation did happen. Injuries were a problem. The following season, though, you got off to a good start, scoring in the 3-0 win against Blackpool in the old Division 2. Did you feel from the start that was going to be a good season for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was tough times then at Man City, and Frank Clark was a really nice guy, and a good manager. What he'd done at Forest, etc., was formidable. And then Joe Royle came in. There were different people. Joe Royle was an ex-centre forward, and a good one that did teach me some good things. And it was a tough time at that time with the club sort of struggling with injuries and results, and all of a sudden, if you're not doing well at these big clubs, it can turn pretty quick, and it did. Like you say, we got relegated, but that was another big learning curve for me. I've never experienced anything like that in my life, and it was a bit of a hammer hit, to be honest. And it's like, wow, this is how low the game can get you if you allow it to. So it gives you something to fight against every day and every season you play. And you don't want to go through too many of those, but they happen. That's football. But it's how you learn from it and how you bounce back from it is the most important thing. And I tried to learn as much as I could from that season moving forwards.
City eventually had a bid from Palace. Did you see that move as potentially a new fresh start for you after the difficult time at sea?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I had 3.5 years left on my contract at Man City. I could have stayed, and but my wife was sort of 8.5 months pregnant with our first child, and we're both from the Isle of Wight, and it was like a sort of a move closer to home where we could have some support system around us. We're both young and lived away, and that was the attraction really. And that for a fresh start, sometimes you need that as a player, but you don't really see it. You just muddle on through and try and make the best of a situation. But Terry Venables and Terry Fenwick put in a bid for me at Palace, and I'd worked with them both before, and they'd got the best out of me, so that was an attraction for me. And moved to Palace and had a great couple of years there until they ended up getting financial troubles. But fantastic club, really good coaches. Terry Venables, he was the first real coach I had that taught me things, that got me doing different things and got success from that. He was somebody that I really respected. Obviously, he's been at Barcelona and Tottenham and been at some really big clubs, England manager. And I was excited to work with him again.
How did your early managers like Frank Clark, Terry Fenwick and Joe Royle, how did they all differ? And was there particularly one that got the best out of you, Lee?
I think Terry Fenwick got the best out of me just because he was similar. I mean, he was hardworking. He was from a working class background. He wanted to win. He was tough. And all these things that I sort of came naturally to me. He enhanced, and then along with that was the coaching of Terry Venables. So I was getting sort of the best of both worlds. Terry Fenwick was probably the most person I could relate to. But then the other managers, Frank Clark was calm. He's calculated. He knew what he was talking about before he'd told you. He'd already thought about what he was saying and doing. And Joe Royle was somebody that could be both. He could flip in and out of being loud and semi-aggressive, and also very informative as well and professional. So, I mean, you take a lot out of different managers over the years. I've had many, and as I started to get a bit older, I started to think about the strengths and weaknesses of those managers and coaches as well that I would sort of look to put into my makeup later on in life. But Terry Fenwick was the one that probably got the best out of me early in my career.
How did your selection for the England under-21s come about, and how many caps did you earn?
I only got 3 caps, but I ended up away to Italy in the European qualifiers. I ended up fracturing my back. I got kneed in the back, and when I was at Man City, I tried to play through the game. I did play on, but afterwards went back to City and ended up having a scan, and I had a hairline fracture in my vertebrae. Which I still struggle with now every now and again, to be honest. But it came around, I think, just for getting a high-profile move to Man City at that age, being a young Englishman scoring goals in the Championship. Managed to get a move and go away we played Moldova, Italy, and God, you're testing me now. Bulgaria, I think. And we trained with the first team, and to be around the likes of Alan Shearer and Ian Wright and people like that, Sol Campbell was inspiring. And unfortunately though, I turned 21 pretty soon after, so I only got 3 games under my belt before I could do any more. But I was in the 21s with the likes of Rio Ferdinand, Jamie Carragher, Frank Lampard, there's me and Emil Heskey. We had a good team. And I was only in and out though pretty quick. So I was disappointed I didn't get the move a year earlier. It would have been nice to sort of play with them guys a bit more.
Of course, you worked under 2 managers at Selhurst Park, Terry Venables and Steve Coppell. How did those 2 managers differ? Did you get on with their style of play, and did you enjoy your time at Selhurst Park, Lee?
Yeah, very much so. It was a great club, family club, really supportive through bad times, or if we were losing, they would be very supportive and sing their hearts out for the team. And that transferred to the pitch and give us a confidence as well. And we were doing okay until the club went into financial difficulties and started to offload everyone. So as far as the managers, I think the Steve Coppell was quiet, unassuming, but very organised and very knowledgeable of the game, and he was completely different to Terry Fenwick, who was a live wire, who was quite aggressive in his coaching style, which I quite liked. And they were completely different ends of the spectrum, but ones that I both respected very much and enjoyed working with.
You had a spell at Birmingham on loan during that time as well. How did that spell go?
Yeah, it was okay. I mean, at the time, it was Palace were in financial difficulties, as I said, and they started getting rid of lots of players. And Birmingham come in for me to go on loan, and the club, obviously spoke to me and said, "Look, financially, we're as you've seen, we're trying to offload and get as much back as we can before they go into real deep difficulties." And I didn't want to hold the club to ransom. I didn't want to stay there and make it difficult. I wanted just to play football. And Trevor Francis was the manager at the time at Birmingham, and in the same league in the Championship. We went there and we got in the playoffs, played Watford in the playoffs, and went to a penalty shootout, and we ended up losing 13-12, I think. Both goalkeepers took penalties, and it went round, and young Chris Holland missed on the day. And Watford went on to get promoted after that. So, missed out on a Wembley debut with that one. But good experience. Again, another massive club and a very well supported one.
Whilst at Palace, Pompey offered 300,000 to bring you back to Fratton Park. Did you feel that you had unfinished business down the south coast, and were there any reservations of going back?
Again, I felt like it. I didn't really have much choice, to be honest. I mean, I signed a 5-year deal at Palace, and financially they were in trouble. Mark Goldberg, who was the chairman at the time, who's now gone into management in non-league, he lost fortune, millions, and I didn't want to be a hindrance to the club. I'd enjoyed my time there, and with Portsmouth coming in for me, it was somewhere there that I'd had success, and I had a great relationship with the fans, and it was close to home again. And I'd gone in a full circle, really, up around the country and back again, and back home. And that was an attraction. And also that I knew that I could get down there and get playing. And the fans knew what they were getting, and the club knew what they were getting with myself, and vice versa. So, that was a good move for me, and one that I sort of went on to stay for sort of 4 years after that. But it was a no-brainer for me at the time to move.
I believe it was Alan Ball that brought you back to Fratton Park, wasn't it? But he was sacked that December, wasn't he? And then Tony Pulis took over.
Yeah.
How was your relationship with those two managers?
Yeah, Bowley was fiery, was very highly strung. He was quite aggressive. Listen, he was somebody at the highest standards as a player. He expected you to be able to do all the things that he could as a player, and he drove training, he drove standards all the time. He was a good guy, and absolutely devastated to find out that he had died a few years back now. But all these people that have been and touched you and helped you through your career. It's nice to look back at some of those memories. It was me, Guy Whittingham, Steve Claridge up front, and he would work tirelessly with us, and he wouldn't let us go in until we got it right. And a nice guy. And then Tony Pulis came in. He was completely different as well, organised and very, very. Every training session would do shape. Set pieces, would be organised. He wouldn't, he would hate conceding goals, and he would make sure that we do everything we can through the week to make sure that everyone knew their jobs. And different characters, but got the same goals. They all work differently, and I got on well with Tony, to be fair, and he was a good guy.
During this period at Portsmouth, you played with the man in the Dean Court hot seat at the moment, Gary O'Neill. What was he like as a young player, and what tips would you give him as he currently sits there?
Gary was, I think he was 16 years old when he made his debut at Fratton Park. He actually nicked a goal off me. I told him to jacks it, like leave the ball and football talk, as the ball come across the 6-yard box. But he knocked it in, and I ended up picking him up, and his little legs were going. He was a thin little energetic centre midfielder, but was technically good. And we're friends now. We've been friends. The families have been friends since. And I sort of looked after Gary when he was younger, coming into the senior setup, and he's a golf partner of mine. And we haven't played for a while now together because obviously busy schedules, etc. But yeah, we've been friends ever since, and our families are friends. So as far as advice, I would say to him, be yourself. Don't try and be other people, but your character is your character. But learn from other experienced players, coaches, managers you worked with, and get people around you that you can trust, because that is the most important thing. And that word trust comes up so much in football, but he needs to know that everyone in his team has got his back, and all pulling in the right direction for him. And if they do that, I'm sure he'll be a success.
What were your best moments in a Poppy shirt the second time around? Is there any goals that stand out in your memory or games?
I'm not too sure. I mean, it morphs. A lot of it morphs into one. It's sometimes you think, was that the first time there or second time? I think the second time when Peter Crouchnut came to the club, and Graham Ricks brought him into the club. Playing with him was good. You could see what a young, talented boy he was. And he wasn't just 6'7" and good in the air. He actually was a very technically good footballer, and people never give him enough credit for that. He was a very good footballer, Crouchy, and understood the game well. But it was nice to link up with him, and I think scoring the diving header against Man City at home in front of the Fratton End would probably be one of my highlights for me personally. Difficult time at City, as we touched on earlier, and ended up scoring a diving header, I think, to win 2-1 in that game. And I think it was Gary that crossed the ball, actually, thinking back. Yeah, Gary crossed the ball from wide, and I pulled off Dunn at the far stick and diving header into the bottom corner. So that was a nice one. And but probably the highlight would have been scoring in a game to keep us up. Last game of the season when Graham Ricks was the manager. So to keep Portsmouth in the Championship, that was a big accomplishment that time, because financially we weren't in a great position, but we managed to stay in there.
Your last 2 seasons were actually spent out on loan. Of course, you mentioned there Graham Ricks, but you also was managed by Harry Redknapp as well.
Yeah.
Did they send you out on loan because they couldn't give you game time, and how did you cope with that?
I just got given the armband at Fratton Park by Graham Ricks away at Millwall. First game as a captain, and I managed to pick up a terrible injury, a very bad tackle, which I tried to sue the player later on. But I snapped my cruciate ligament, my lateral ligament, medial ligament, snapped my hamstring, popped my cartilage, and capsule in my knee. My leg was facing the other way in the game. Yeah. And I was out for over a year with that. And that sort of set me back. And confidence-wise, I wasn't the same player afterwards. Speed, I'd lost my speed a little bit. And I was 26 at the time, I think. So then I ended up sort of moving around the pitch, centre midfield, on the wings, right back later on at Bournemouth. But good experience. I like to think that I know every position on the pitch because I played pretty much all of them in the end, apart from goalkeeper. So I've got a good understanding of them, and that's helped me do that over the years. But I think after that, I came back. We got promoted. I went on loan to Sheffield Wednesday and Derby in those times. Again, 2 massive clubs. Harry called me back because we had a couple of injuries. I came back in my first game. A habit that I have is playing against the team that I've just been playing for. So I got called back for Portsmouth, and we played Sheffield Wednesday in my first game. And I ended up scoring, and we were 2-1 up, and that would have been the goal that got us promoted into the Premier League. And then one of the defenders, Gianluca Festa, made a mistake, and Michael Reddy scored in the 92nd minute to draw the game 2-2. So we had to go into the next game to get promoted. But yeah, I thought it was meant to be at that time. But yeah, we ended up getting promoted to the Premier League, which is great. But it was after that really that I struggled to get into the team because the injury had affected me. But Harry Redknapp, yeah, great manager, great character, and somebody I still speak to now, and somebody that I've got a lot of respect for.
What can you tell us about your experiences at Sheffield Wednesday and Derby?
Sheffield Wednesday had a quite good time. Yeah, I think Chris Turner was the manager at the time, the ex-goalkeeper, and it's amazing. Every time I went into the stadium, it was like remembering games when I was young, semi-finals of FA Cups, and some big games been held there over the years. And now a friend of mine, Darren Moore's the manager there, and I've been up to watch him in the playoffs. And every time I go there, it's just got this old traditional feel about it at the club. Absolutely fanatic fans. Even in League One, we were getting 25,000, 26,000 fans every week. And then as you go out through the leagues, it fills the place. But great atmosphere, good club, and same as Derby. The new ground, as it were. It's just a phenomenal club, and it's a Premier League setup. And it's sad what's happened to them, but sometimes you've got to take a backward step to go forwards, and I'm sure they've got the right people in charge now to do that.
Yeah, most definitely. 2004, you made your permanent switch to Walsall.
Yeah.
You only played 8 times before moving to Oxford United, though, in the same year. What can you tell us about that period?
Yeah, Paul Merson was at the club at the time that I've been with at Portsmouth, and yeah, I think I just wanted to get playing, and I'm not a type of person or player to just sit and rest on my laurels and sit around. I want to play football. That's what I get paid to do. So, spoke to Merson, Colin Lee, who's the manager, and said, "Can you come try and help us stay in the league?" Because they were struggling at the time. I went up and played 8 games, but yeah, it was a good club. And Merce being Merce was still an unbelievable player at the time. He was coming to the end of his career, but he would come on and change games, and to play with somebody like that again was a big attraction for me.
And the move to Oxford, how did that come about in the same year?
Yeah, it was the first time I dropped to that level, and it was. But I went up and spoke to the manager, Graham Ricks, again at the time, who was I'd known formerly from Portsmouth. Somebody I trust, and somebody that I like and wanted to please, and he's put his trust in me to go there and be the captain and try and take the team forwards. Unfortunately, I had a clause in my contract that when I played a certain amount of games, I would trigger another year on the same money. And the chairman at the time would not, when I got to the 29 games, pulled me in and said that he didn't want me to keep that clause in my contract. And I said, I signed a deal the same as you have, and I won't go back on it. And I don't expect you to. But he did. So I sat in the stand for a month, and came to January, and then I moved to Southend, where I went on and won the league with that team in the same league. So it was a bittersweet one for me.
Yeah, definitely.
What attracted you to signing for Southend?
Steve Tilson, to be honest, the manager, and Sean Goat was at the club at the time. Obviously, I played with at City. Yeah. They had a good team, Freddie Eastwood and Kev Mayo is now the manager there. We had Adam Barrett, who I signed when I was at Bournemouth, off the back of knowing his character and knowing what he brings to the table. Adam was a ferocious defender and a very, organised individual that would do anything to win. and he would put his face in front of the ball to keep a clean sheet. And that's the type of people I wanted around me, certainly in the defence. That would do everything they can. And and just the personnel they had at the club, it looked like a good place to be. And as I say, we went on and won the League One, and got promoted to the Championship with Southend. And it's like the highest they've ever been. And it was a great season. We had really good characters at the club, and it was an enjoyable time.
Of course, you did make the move to Dean Court shortly after. And it started off as a loan move. It quickly turned into a permanent deal, though. What was the story behind your move to Cherries?
It came. Steve Tilson spoke to me, and Bournemouth were interested in signing you. What do you think? And Bournemouth was always a club that, living on the south coast, someone that I wanted to play for. And at that time, the travelling was affecting me quite a lot. Travelling from the south coast up to Southend every day was tough. I'd stay up all the odd times before games and stuff, but it was a lot of travelling. And I spoke to Kevin Bond, and to be honest, my mind was already made up before I spoke to Kevin, but he sort of confirmed that it was the right move for me. And I was excited to go down and play for Bournemouth. And again, knew quite a lot of the players that were there through playing against them or with them at some point. And, a different sort of challenge for me opened up, and that was something that I was excited about.
What was it like working under Kevin Bond and his coaching team of Rob Newman, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Eddie Howe was player coach by then?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, Bondy was great character, knows the game, nice guy, Rob was good. He obviously had a good career playing at Norwich, etc. And Eddie he'd had injuries and was sort of learning, dipping his toe into the coaching life and the management life after that. But it was a good time, and we were building. The club were going through sort of a bit of a transition at the time, and it was, I've come in and with Darren Anden. I couldn't believe Darren Anden was at the club, and to play with somebody of Darren's experience and knowledge was brilliant. Warren Cummins and people like that, people with characters. And we had that in abundance at the club for the years after. He had a really good dressing room and managed well, can get his success, and that's what happened in the end.
Of course, he was playing at right back, and you did touch on how it come about earlier on in the interview. But did you enjoy playing that position, or would you have rather played elsewhere on the pitch?
I honestly didn't mind. I just wanted to play. Mm-hmm. I wanted to compete. I wanted to work hard. I wanted to win. I played up front most of my career, so I would have preferred to play up front. But we had Brett Pittman was scoring goals at the time.
Yeah.
Jeff Golding was come out of non-league and was doing well. We had a really good squad that still hungry to prove points. Whether that's lads that were dropping down or lads that were coming up from non-league. And that's the ponds that they were fishing in at the time as a club, Bournemouth. But what they did do, and something I've taken on ever since, is they signed good people.
Yeah.
People that want to be there, that want to win, that are going to do whatever they can to get that win. And we had some great characters in the dressing room, and it's good fun. We had great fun, but we worked hard, and we enjoyed competing, and we enjoyed winning, and that was. I mean, Liam Feeney's still playing now at Scunthorpe, and we had Marvin Bartley, and we had Ryan Gary, Jason Pearce, Sammy Igo. We could go on. Brett Pittman and Danny Hollins, and good lads and good players, and very competitive. And training was competitive every day. And but we were close as a group, probably the closest group that I've been in football.
Yeah.
Through those couple of years. And I think through adversity sometimes it pulls you together. And the club were struggling financially, and the buckets were out and trying to stay in the league. And we just took it in our stride. You know, we just got on with it, and we egged each other on, and we got the best out of each other. And I think that comes from the top as well. So, you know, Eddie and everyone else has got to take a lot of credit for
that. So obviously you're at the club during the administration period. I mean, how did that affect you as a player and the squad as a whole? And, you know, was there any points where you were thinking, I might have to go and find somewhere else to play? You know, did it get that serious for you in the playing squad?
Yeah, I mean, we, as footballers, you almost sort of, you don't really see what's going on outside the grass sometimes. But this has really sort of come to the fore that the club's in real trouble. And we were getting documents sent through from solicitors and through the FA about what was happening at the club. And the lads didn't read it half the time. They just wanted to play football. And that's the group that we was, you know, until the only reason the players would start kicking up would be that we didn't get paid, because obviously then it starts affecting your life. But what we did have was that group, like I said, was a group that wanted to just get results. And I think that was a perfect time to have that group, because if you did have individuals that were worried about this, that, or the other outside the pitch, then they could have been affected massively. But we didn't let that affect us, and we just, as long as we got paid, we just cracked on and tried to do our jobs the best of our ability.
Of course, starting on -17 after all the administration was sorted out and a transfer embargo, what can you remember about Kevin Bond's plan to tackle that season and keep us up?
Well, that's how I ended up playing right back, because we had an embargo. We had, I can't remember who was playing right back at the time, to be honest. But I just remember having a conversation. The gaffer, Bondy, pulled me and said, "Brothers, could you play right back Saturday?" And I said, "Can I, or do I want to?" I said, "One, I don't know if I can, but I'm willing to. Not a problem. I'll play there. I'll play there." I said, "How hard is it?" He went, "I'm sure you'll be fine." So yeah, I played there and enjoyed it, and stayed up -17. And the following year got promoted. It's probably my two most successful seasons in my career as far as what you accomplish. And I was playing right back, so I enjoyed it. It was a different challenge. Everything's gone from being with my back to play in front of me to having the ball at my feet and the whole picture being in front of me. And it was a nice change. I thought it was, why hadn't I played it all my career? It's much easier. I'm not getting kicked from behind. I'm not getting elbowed in the face. But what I did face was tricky, quick, intelligent wingers. That I was sort of I'd slowed down a bit by then, but I had experience, and I could, you know, get tight and take fouls when I needed to, and ball may pass but man may not type of attitude, and that's how I got through, really. And and I'll say it helps when you've got good players around you and talking and helping each other, and that's how we got through as a team. But yeah, that's how it came around, and you know, I think that was a new welcome challenge for me, because I think I've never played in that position, and under pressure we managed to pull off the unbelievable.
Yeah, definitely.
Going back to Kevin Bond briefly, do you think he was harshly treated, being sacked too early, or?
Possibly, but we were struggling at the club at the time, and you know, things have to change, and it's, you know, the manager gets the brunt of that most of the time. Now, being a manager, I see that it's cheaper to get rid of one than get rid of 20. So, and you can get a different reaction, and you try and get a bit of a lift and stuff. But, you know, Kevin was someone that was very honest and transparent with how he done things, and the lads respected him. And that's a big part of management. And, you know, I thought through a very difficult time, he done well with what he could.
Of course, Jimmy Quinn took over from Kevin, but lasted a short time in the role. What were his methods like, Lee, and did you get on with him?
Jimmy was someone that came with a brilliant, glowing career as far as playing, and I didn't know too much about him beforehand. And he was different. And Tyndall come into the building from Weymouth, I think, Jason Tyndall, who was a good character and the lads liked and still do. And he's that good link between the manager and the coach and the players. And it just didn't quite happen for Jimmy for whatever reason. And he was very briefly at the club and was moved on again. And then obviously the birth of Eddie Howe happened. So everything happens for a reason, to say. And I mean, Jimmy was a nice guy, but just didn't quite happen for him at the time at Bournemouth.
There was a lot of talk at the time as well about some of his training sessions and everything. Can you shed any light on that? Were his training sessions good, or were they a little bit subpar?
To be honest, I find it disrespectful to talk about other people's sessions.
No, that's fair enough.
So I don't, it's all I say is everyone's different and everyone is trying to do their best. Whether that happens at that time at that club for you or not is subjective, I suppose, to what's going on at the time. So I thought Jimmy tried his absolute best to try and get the group going, but for some reason or another, it didn't happen.
No, fair enough.
Who were the standout characters in the Cherries changing room around this time?
You'd heard it a million times. It's Warren Cummins, who's such a joker, and Marvin Bartley, as we said earlier, was so loud, Marv, and infectious in his character and his willingness to win and run and have fun whilst doing it. Darren Anderton was the most respected in the group, obviously from what he'd done and how he still applied himself. Still a very fit lad, Daz was at 36 or whatever he was at the time. And the career he'd had, he could have easily sat at home financially, but he wanted to compete and he wanted to win and help other people. And he did that on and off the pitch, to be honest, in abundance. So, there's lots of them. And that's, as I touched on earlier, I think the biggest thing we had was character and togetherness and a never say die attitude. And I think that was with everyone on the pitch, to be honest. But they're the ones that stand out, yeah.
Of course, Jimmy left, and a certain, as I like to call him now, Sir Eddie Howe was appointed manager. And what was it like as a senior player playing for somebody that hadn't reached 30?
Yeah, I think it comes down to respect.
Mm-hmm.
If you respect the person, it doesn't matter if he's younger, older, or anything else. It's Eddie was a quiet. I was with Eddie at Portsmouth, and obviously had bad injuries and stuff that made him go into his coaching career early. But as I said earlier, I think that was for a reason, and without that, Eddie wouldn't have probably gone into coaching so early and wouldn't be the manager he is today, probably. I mean, I think the boys knew that he knew the game. He was very thoughtful and deep and a perfectionist in what he wanted to do, and very unassuming, Ed, but approachable at the same time. And I think all these qualities he's kept, and he's managed to be himself all the way through, up to date, and that's a great quality. And I've got a lot of respect for Eddie. He's a good guy and a good coach and manager. So it was, but him starting his career, obviously he'd make mistakes, but he'd learn from it, and no one's perfect. I'm sure he'd be the first one to admit that. But we were supportive of him through those times, and he was back. So I think you could see that the mannerisms that he had, he was going to be a success at some point.
So with the Great Escape, what do you remember about the games into the run into the Grimsby game and the emotions after?
Yeah, it was just building, we're like, God, we've got to win this game, we've got to win that game. And then all of a sudden it comes down to that game. And it was a packed Dean Court on that day. Obviously a massive moment in the club's history. And without us keeping them in the league that year, it could have been a completely different story. There was lots going on behind the scenes with people trying to help the club financially. Jeff Mostyn, and that was there at the time, who's still obviously at the club. Lots of people that I could talk about that were doing over and above to try and keep the club afloat. And we were doing the same as a group of players. And the pressure was on that day, but we managed to get the win. And I think the atmosphere after that game was phenomenal. I think the fans sort of almost realised how important, when the final whistle went, how important that could be for the club's future, and that hit us as well after the game, I think. But I can't remember much after that because I was too drunk, to be honest.
I don't blame you, Lee. Don't blame you at all. But of course, better was to come. We were promoted the following year, as we can see behind you. How did Eddie change his style from a side that was battling all season to a side that was going to get promoted? And what were his secrets?
I think I touched on them earlier. He didn't change. He didn't change his outlook. What he did bring was levels of professionalism, good standards, a depth of investigation into opposition and analysis that we probably hadn't seen before or worked with. And, Eddie sort of seized the opportunity to work with a keen, together group of players that, were willing to win, and he got the best out of us. And to go from, I think we just grew from that staying up that season, and we added some good players towards the squad, and we started well, and it just grew, and he gave us confidence to go and do that. And as for a young manager that was only been in the game a couple of years, coaching wise, was a fantastic start for him, and the rest is history. He's grown ever since. So really pleased for Eddie and the rest of his coaching staff, because they deserve it.
So if we go on to the 2010-2011 season now, obviously you're still involved as a player on a regular basis, and then in January, obviously Eddie and JT decided to move up to Burnley. Did you have any idea that Eddie Mitchell might have seen you as the next manager? And how did he approach it?
No, I mean, I think we played Colchester away, and it was Eddie's last game, and I played right wing that day, and I sort of, we knew that Eddie was going, but we hadn't been told officially. But things get around the players, and we sort of knew before the game, really. And that day, I remember my legs. I couldn't get my legs going. I think I got dragged at half time. Or it might have been 60 minutes. I got taken off because I couldn't get around, and I don't know if it affected me, because and that was my last ever game. I never played after that because obviously ended up becoming the manager. But I didn't have an inkling, no. But I knew that I'd want to speak to Eddie and try and get involved. I wanted to step into management, and I knew the group well, and seen Eddie as a young coach be successful, and wanted a piece of that after. But they went up to Burnley, and then I ended up speaking to Eddie and getting the caretaker's job.
We have had Eddie Mitchell on the show, and one of the things that really stood out for him was your military background. Did you see how important that was going to be, your past career was going to be, to getting that manager's job?
I didn't see it was going to be important for me to get that manager's job, but I knew it'd be important in life. I knew it'd be important in whatever job you go into, right? You've got to have good standards. You've got to be driven. You've got to be, you've got to turn up on time. You've got to be well presented. You've got to be all the things that are givens, are those for me. And, I think driving each other, camaraderie, togetherness, having that mentality of doing whatever you got to do to win, would be something that would transfer in whatever walk of life I went into. And that's why I'll never regret joining the services, because I think it's really stuck with me all the way through. So I knew I would be all of those things in the role. But would I go in straight away and get the respect of the players? I think so, because I've played with them and I've been. But it was a different transformation for me, because I've been a teammate and quite a live wire in the dressing room at times, to now becoming the manager and telling them they can't do this and the shot got to do that, and and that took a little bit of time to make that transition a good one.
What was your approach to taking over from Eddie? Was it a case of let's not fix something unless it's broken, or was it a case of just gradually making your own stamp on the side?
Both, to be honest. I think we were fourth or something at the time, maybe third in the league, and when they left, and I'd have been a fool to go in and rip it up and try and change things when we were doing so well. So it was keep the boys on the same track, keep lots of the things that Eddie and Jason had been implemented into the team and into the club, but also as I went along, putting my own little stamp on things. And if I've seen a way that I thought could try and improve us, then that was my job. My job's trying to get results for the club and trying to finish as high as we can. And we had a good start, and then we had a little bit of a dip, but then we came back again and we managed to stay in the playoffs. But I did put my own stamp on it, but not straight away. And do you know what? I thought about it, and at the time I thought, if I'm a player in the dressing room now and one of the other senior players is taking over as manager, what would I feel if I'd gone in and changed a lot or changed nothing? Or, it's getting that balance of putting your own little bits on it and getting respect for doing good things, but also being respected for actually going, we're doing great, there's no need to change. And that was part of my team talk to the players. Just keep doing what we're doing, keep playing the way we're playing. We're on the front foot, possession-based team. Played with inverted wingers at the time, which was sort of a newish thing at the time. We were overlapping fullbacks, and we got a lot of crosses in the box and put the opposition under pressure, and that was something that we thrived on and enjoyed doing.
Of course, your number 2 at Bournemouth was Biggin, as we like to know him, Super Steve Fletcher.
Yeah.
He does watch this show as well. So how did your partnership work with Fletch?
Yeah, no, at the time, so we both went in to see Eddie Mitchell, and he said to me, if I offered you the job, what would you do then? Because I had a year and a half left on my contract. I said, if you offer me permanently, I'd stop playing now. And he said, well, you'd stop playing now? I said, yeah. And he asked the same to Fletch, and Fletch said he didn't want to stop playing. He wanted to still be part of the playing staff as well. So we had individual meetings afterwards, and Eddie said to me, I'm going to give you the caretaker's job, but I'm going to ask Fletch to help you alongside with his experience at the club and knows the club inside out. Would I be okay with that? I said, yes, not a problem. And and from then, the Fletcher was a big character at the club. Yeah. And he was well respected both by the fans and the players. So it was a no-brainer for me at the time.
You brought in 3 players that would go on to make a lasting impression at the club and obviously rise up through the leagues at Dean Court. Simon Francis, Charlie Daniels and Steve Cook. What made you think that they'd fit into the squad at that time when you were managing?
Again, I think from playing over the years, and Simon Francis was with me at Southend. He'd moved to Charlton and wasn't really getting much game time. And I always thought Simon was a Rolls Royce of a player. 6'3", could run, could cross a ball, could defend. And he just was having a spell where he needed, like we spoke about earlier, a fresh challenge probably. So I spoke to Simon and, would he fancy doing it and build his confidence up and get him playing again and getting back to his best. And he was excited about the new challenge. And I think I spoke to the Charlton manager at the time, Chris Powell, and he didn't have a bad word to say about Simon either, but it just wouldn't happen for him. Solly was playing in front of him and he wasn't getting any game time. So we managed to do a deal. I think paid 60 grand for him in the end. So somebody of Simon's what he brought to the club for many years, club captain, etc., playing in the Premier League. It's a fairy tale really for him, and I'm really pleased that it went that way for him because he's a top guy. And then you look at Cookie. Went down to watch him at Littlehampton and playing the reserve game for Brighton, and he was just everything that you see of him all the time. He was calm. He was a good footballer. He was very competitive. He talked well for a young lad, and I could just see that if you could get that confidence in him in the first team, he would revel in it and shine, and he did. Again, another great pro, a bad loser but a good winner, and that's something that you need. And yeah, Charlie was somebody that I played against late in Orient. Every time I played against him, he was difficult to play against. 6'1", great left foot, could run, could defend 1v1, but very comfortable. And an upbringing at Tottenham had sort of installed that in him, really. So yeah, he was somebody that was sort of for me was one of those players that I think if I could get him, would be a much better team. The balance and the size and the pace he had at the time would give us a balance both sides of him and Simon Francis.
You also worked with a young Danny Ings. His impact that season was impressive for a youngster. Did you feel that he had a bright future in the game?
100%. I mean, Eddie first brought him into training. Was training at Littledown once on the 3G.
Yep.
And he brought him into training with us out the youth team. And I remember the senior lads like looking around going, "Who's that? What's his name?" And they're going, "Ingsy, Danny Ings." And I was going, "Bloody hell, he's decent." And that's the biggest compliment you can get as a player. Yeah. When all the other senior pros turn around and go, "Who's that?" And as a young lad, he was sharp. He could go both ways. He was just on the move in the box, and things dropped to him goal. And yeah, and then Eddie moved on, and he played a couple of games. I think in the first team, Eddie gave him his debut. But I put him back in the team and stuck with him a little bit through a little bit of a spell where he struggled. But I backed him, and I related to myself when I was having bad spells at Man City. You need somebody to believe in you and to give you that opportunity. And I was under pressure to take him out of the team, to be honest, through different people. And but I said he'd be fine and we'd keep him in there. And then obviously he's gone on to be the player he has today. But yeah, you could see that he had that little bit of extra special quality. Adam Lallana came down on loan. You could see that he had that bit of quality that we did possess as footballers, and they were that bit better. And yeah, he's gone on to prove that.
So he went on to confirm the playoff place, and obviously we faced Lee Clark's Huddersfield, which that season would have been a strong test for anybody because they were a very good side. But how did you set out to beat them over the two legs? Yeah,
I mean, at home, I wanted to win the home game and go up there and just try and be difficult to play against. You know, it didn't really work out that way. So we've gone up there and had to try and be competitive in the game. And I remember it being a massive crowd, and they all had these things they were banging together. The atmosphere was electric, and there was, you know, a big crowd there that night. And it was a hell of a game, absolute ding donger of a game. And if you watch it back, it had everything. You know, there was good goals, there was sending offs. Jason Pearce got sent off, and we end up sort of looking like we've nicked it late, and then they've scored to take it into extra time and then into penalties, and it just wasn't to be that time. But you know, I think we're a couple of penalty kicks away from. It could have been certainly different for me as a manager if we'd got into the Championship at the time. It would have been probably a different pathway for me. But we ended up selling a lot of our players off the back of that. Players that had done really well for the club. Financially, we needed to do that. I was understanding as a young manager, I felt Eddie was, you know, we needed to balance the books and sell these players. And once all these bigger clubs came in for your likes of Royce Wiggins and Marv went to Burnley with Eddie, and there was lots of people that went out the door. I think 7 out of maybe 6 out of 11 we sold and had to rebuild. And I think we were mid-table when I got the sack, but I did feel that a couple of penalties away from probably being a different pathway for me and the club, importantly. But yeah, things happen for a reason, and you kick on.
Did you select the penalty takers the night before, or was they decided at the end of the game?
No, we obviously practiced penalties in games leading up to it, but you don't know who's going to be on the pitch, so you can't select them before. 120 minutes is a long time in football, so you don't know who's going to be on. Obviously, you'd have in my head, I would have, if he's on here, take one. If he's on here, take one. But it comes to it, you have to ask the players at the end of the 120 minutes who wants to take them, because players could have had a bad game and not feeling confident to take one and didn't want to under the pressure. But on the flip side of that, other players that you didn't expect to put their hand up could have had a really good game and feel confident they're going to score. So, the players put their hands up and I just put them in an order that I thought was going to be the best. And I think Fino and Anton Robinson missed the 2 penalties on the day, but they'd been phenomenal for the club over the previous couple of seasons. So it just highlighted that night that it wasn't to be. I wasn't happy because on the flip of the coin, well, they didn't flip the coin. They called us into the middle, and the referee said that they'd been advised by the safety that there was some Huddersfield fans in the Bournemouth end, and I said, oh, so we get punished for them getting into our end. Now we've got to go and take the penalties in front of their fans, so they gain off of not stewarding the game right. And I thought I had a good point, but the referee said, well, we can't do nothing about that now. We need to go. So we went down their end and took the penalties. Our lads are under pressure and missed 2 penalties. So little things like that, it's important that the clubs get these things right, because it does have an outcome. And I did kick up as much as I could, but they wouldn't reverse the decision. So
yeah, obviously losing the playoff, hurt. And as a manager, what was your plan to bounce back?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, meet with the board and see what their plans were. And it was, I said, look, we need to give these lads new contracts and stuff if we want to keep them. We're paying them X amount of money. There's going to be clubs coming in for them, and we're going to lose them. But we weren't in that financial position to be able to do that at the time. And we ended up selling them. Ingsy goes to Burnley for £1 million in the end, at 18 years old. That was good business for the club. But to lose so many of them was a tough ask. And that's why I'm just trying to rebuild. I was trying to rebuild the similar sort of things what I had before. So then, I'll bring in Scott Malone comes in, and we end up selling him for decent money. You can't get all the signings right. You can't make every signing a Simon Francis or Charlie Downs or Stephen Cook. But I think if you can get sort of majority of them right, you'll have a chance. And I just wasn't quite given that time I felt I deserved. I thought I'd certainly deserve another 5-6 games and to see if I can get in the playoffs midway through the season with a new group.
How did losing Biggin Super Steve Fletch as number 2 affect the 2011-12 season? And what made you bring in Russ Wilcox as replacement?
I just wanted some experience. Myself and Fletch have only been doing it for that year, and Fletch, as admitting himself, he didn't want to come out with the playing side of it. He still felt he had something to give to the team and the club. Russ Wilcox had been at all levels, from Premier League assistant manager down to League Two, and was, what was he at the time, 15 years older than me. He's 50. I was sort of 35, and I wanted that experience around me, that he's been there, seen it and done it, and I thought that would help me. And I brought in Steve Gritt as a senior scout that was, again, 60 years old, that had been sort of in and out of the game for a long period. So I thought that would help me. And yeah, and that was the main thing, I think, experiencing the coaching setup and people that know sort of had your back. So and that was important.
It's obviously never nice to be relieved of your duties, but did Eddie give you a decent explanation as why they relieved you?
Well, first and foremost, Eddie wanted to, and the club wanted to get rid of all my coaching staff and keep me on board and work with the youth setup in Sean Brooks and
Paul Graves.
Paul Groves. And I wasn't willing to do that. I brought these people in to help me, to be my staff. And Eddie said, well, you have to, otherwise, we're going to have to sort of go separate ways. And I said, well, that's your decision. I'm not sort of making that decision. But he said, well, you'll have to leave then. I said, well, you have to sack me, because I'm not walking away from a club where I've been enjoying it, and I'm in a job which I'm enjoying. So he did. And but it's something that I don't hold grudges. Speak to Eddie, not a problem. He'd done his best for the football club at the time, like I was doing the best for the football club. It's business at the end of the day. I don't hold grudges, and I had great times at Bournemouth and with the fans, and through promotion, thick and thin, and some unbelievable times. So I don't hold grudges with anyone. I just look at it as experience, and we move on.
How much influence did Maxim Deming have during your spell as manager, Lee?
None, really. Didn't have much direct access to Max. A lot of it through other people. But I didn't. He didn't try and affect me. He didn't try and pick the team. He didn't try and affect who I signed. Absolutely no problem at all. And he was just somebody that was, going to start putting the money in and try and take the club forwards. And he's certainly done that over the years. So I think you've got to take your hat off to him. And it's one thing to say you're going to do things, another thing to actually do them. So credit where credit's due, and that's something that he deserves credit for.
What are your lasting memories of Bournemouth?
Good fans, nice people, good people at the club, friendly, just nice club, nice area to live, to work in, and a well-respected footballing club. And that's something that's been for years and years and years. And I think that's the DNA the club has and is proud of. And every manager that comes in will try and enhance. And Gary will be no different. He will know the qualities that they've had. We've had many chats over the years about coaching and management, etc. And he's an intelligent young coach that's obviously been at Liverpool and works with the 23s, and I'm sure he'll have a bright career, and whether that's at Bournemouth or somewhere else, I'm sure he'll be successful.
You did have a short spell back as assistant manager at Portsmouth. How did that move come about, and who did you assist?
I wasn't assistant manager at Portsmouth. I coached in the youth team and the under 16s.
Okay.
But it came around after leaving Bournemouth. They approached me and said, would you come in and do some sessions for the youth setup? And, I still felt that I just wanted to get on the grass and coach.
Yeah.
And I wanted to learn and be around people that have got experience. And Andy Orford at the time. And there's some good people down at Portsmouth. I went down and enjoyed it. And then the Havant and Waterlooville job came up and I went for that. One, it was on my doorstep. Two, it was a level where I felt I could go in and make a difference. And, I could have hung around. I got down to the last three for the Wimbledon job after leaving Bournemouth. But this job popped up and I said, you know what? I just want to go and get my boots dirty and go and learn my trade. And so I went there 7 years, had a couple of promotions, had a relegation. But yeah, had good times, and it's all part of developing as a coach and a young manager.
So obviously, since leaving Dean Court, like you said, having Waterlooville, you've also managed Eastbourne. Now you're at Eastleigh. How does managing those clubs differ to managing a club in the Football League?
Yeah, I mean, there's different restrictions and different. I was at Crawley for 2.5 years, assistant manager there with John Yems, and through some good times. And that was the only time I've been a number two, and it was a completely different role to being the manager. One I enjoyed, but yeah, when you're working at lower levels and non-league and stuff, obviously financially it's a challenge. But depending where you're at and where the club want to be at. I mean, now at Eastleigh, it's fantastic club, very similar to Bournemouth. Good people behind the scenes. People take pride in the club that will come in and help and volunteer and try and push the club forwards. And yeah, I'm really enjoying my time there. And that's the same through having it at Waterloo and that as well. Non-league clubs, lower league clubs are built on the foundations of volunteers and people that will do something for nothing. Otherwise, the clubs don't survive. And that's the magic of those clubs. You meet some real characters and some people that haven't got a lot, but everything is the club for them, and that is beautiful to see. The game of football is bringing people together and making people's lives much more comfortable than it would be otherwise.
Of course, Eastleigh have been pushing to get into the Football League for some time. First part of the question really is, do you feel that you can make the Football League this season? But secondly, what sort of effect would it have on that club to be promoted to League Two?
Yeah, of course, we want to try and get in the playoffs if we can. It's going to be a tough ask. This is a tough league now. It really is. It's getting stronger and stronger every year. I mean, you look at the likes of Wrexham and Notts County, and there's some massive clubs in the league paying lots of money. And, we're trying to be that club that gets into the playoffs, that gets a bit of momentum and gets moving forwards. And, why can't we? We've got a good squad. We've got a small squad, but we've got a good squad. And we've had a little bit of a dip in the last couple of games, but we started the season well, and we're not far away from being a really good team at this level. So yeah, I'm excited about the next 6 or 7 months, and hopefully we can push for the playoffs. So any Cherries fans that are not going to away games, get yourself up to Eastleigh and come and say hello.
Yeah, fingers crossed, and hopefully you can get the club into the Football League, because it'd be amazing to see Eastleigh in League Two.
Yeah, definitely.
So you mentioned about your short spell at Crawley. What was it like having the BBC cameras follow you and Mark Wright around for that documentary?
Yeah, it was good fun. Mark was a great lad. Somebody actually came on trial at Bournemouth when I was playing there for, I think Eddie might have been in charge at the time. And he actually broke my nose in training. Mark was a good player. But, it's tough for him to, at 33, I think he was when the documentary was done, trying to break into professional football at that age is hard. It's hard enough when you're 18 and you're fit. And Mark was fit. He was on the training ground, first one, last one off. Attitude was absolutely spot on. But probably just too late in his life to be able to sort of make a difference and do it with longevity. But he was excellent. The lads all took to him. He wasn't the celebrity that he is on the training pitch. He was just one of the lads, and that's something that I think that made all the boys buy into it. And it was good fun with the cameras following us around. He managed to play against Leeds in a 3-0 win in the FA Cup when we beat them 3-0. We brought him on sub for the last 5-6 minutes. He played with his brother Josh, who was playing for us at the time. And they're a very close family. So that would be a great thing for him. But yeah, he deserved that, Mark, because he did train very well, and he did lead by example all the time.
Your son Harvey is actually involved in the game as well. Have you had the chance to work with him as a manager? And does his game, is it similar to yourself, Lee?
Yeah, I think he is. I mean, he's 6'4" now, and You know, it's I've got to look up to him, and you know, he's been around some good clubs. He's dropped out into non-league at the moment just because he wanted to play. He's fed up the travelling. You know, he's been at Watford and Millwall. He played in League One for Oxford United. But he's 23 now, and he wants to play, and he likes his coaching as well. So he coaches as well. So yeah, he's certainly a chip off the old block, I think, as they say.
Yeah.
He puts himself around. He's hard working. He's big and strong, and he wants to. He's again, like I said earlier, he's a bad loser but a good winner, and that's something I think I've always put into him. I've never let him win at anything. You know, if he beats me, he knows he beats me because he's better than me, not because I'm dad letting him win. So, yeah, I think that's an important value to have as a player and as a person, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely.
And last question for you, Lee. What is the long-term ambitions of Lee Bradbury?
My ambitions are to coach or manage as high as I can. Obviously, I had the taste with yourselves in League One in the playoffs, and that's something I want to get back to. I want to coach as high as I can. I think looking at it now, I've been coaching, managing coaching for 12 years. I've done a lot of games, and I feel that I'm experienced now. I'm in a good place. I'm still reasonably young at 47, but I've got a lot of games under my belt. So, yeah, I want to climb the ladder again and get back up, whether that be as a manager or coach, and be at the top level.
Excellent stuff. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this show, Lee. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. All the very, very best for the future. And will you be popping down to Dean Court for a couple of matches when Eastleigh aren't playing?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'll get down. I've been down like quite a few times since I left the club, and always nice to see friendly faces. I mean, even little things like a steward at the ground who always has sweets in his pocket for the kids and that, and he's still there, and I'm saying gives a sweet and all that. You know, it's like same old faces, which is amazing. And as we said earlier, it's not the club hasn't lost its DNA as far as it's a family club. We've got volunteers that sort of are now getting paid for what they did years ago for nothing. And it's got that feel about it that everyone wants to be there and enjoy it, and I certainly do when I go back. So yes, I'll try and get down as much as I can, support Gary and the team, and hopefully I can see some of you Cherries fans down there. But thanks for having me on, guys. I really enjoyed it, and up the Cherries.
Thank you so much, Lee. It's been a pleasure.
Take care.
Cheers. Thank you.
See ya. Bye.
And thank you for joining us on this special show. Please do remember to hit the like, the subscribe, and the bell button below to be alerted to any new videos that we do on this channel. Please do also remember to check out our interview with Kieran Maguire, where we spoke about the potential new owner, Bill Foley. We've also had special guests such as Carlton Palmer, Harry Redknapp, Sean Teal, Efan Akuku, Steve Fletcher, of course, the big one. How can we forget him? And Steve Cook, of course, who Lee signed. Also, do remember to hit the like, subscribe, bell button below. You know what to do. And do let us know what you think of all the videos in the comments below. But until the next one, up the Cherries, and we'll see you then. Thank you for joining us.